Hello everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this event. This is an international seminar, and we are going to introduce some of the researches, and one of them is que Herbert Hernandez. He's a researchman and he is working as a professor in the University of Cartagena. His research emphasizes of reading and writing processes. And I want to introduce myself. I'm Julián Snyder. I'm studying licenciatura en educación bilingüe. I had a fourth semester. And let's go with the first researchman.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you are having a great day today. Thanks for this for your invitation to this very important event. I am talking about some special or some techniques, some innovative techniques related to the reading and writing processes in English instruction. Let me share my screen so that I can show you what I have prepared. Mm, well, it shows here that have, I have the presentation already opened, but it seems that the program is not presenting it. I'm trying again. Yes, this is a very interesting. Okay, here it is. Can you see my PowerPoint presentation? It takes some seconds to. People, please confirm that you can hear me well and that you can see the presentation. Okay, so this is the title of my presentation today: Innovative Techniques in Reading and Writing Processes in English Instruction. This is some information about me. I am Ever Hernandez Diaz. I have a bachelor's degree in Spanish language and communication from Universidad de Pamplona. I got a major, which is a specialty degree in education mediated by information and communication technology from Universidad del Norte. And I hold a master's degree in education mediated by information and communication technology from the same university. I got a diploma in TESOL, teaching English to speakers of other languages from the University of the West Indies in Kingston, Jamaica. And I am a professor, like Julián mentioned, at the Universidad de Cartagena and at the Universidad Tecnológica de Bolívar in Cartagena. And I've been teaching English as a foreign language for the past 25 years, and for the past 18 years I've been teaching Spanish as a foreign language, which is a great experience and which has given me the possibility to do some research, sometimes informally but sometimes formally, on the field of instructing the special activity of reading and writing and improving their effectiveness in learners of English and Spanish as foreign languages. Well, speaking about innovative techniques, what's innovation? According to Salcedo, innovations is the new thing, and for some people the new thing is something, but for others the same things that are new for others may not be new, right? So there's not an absolute new thing for everybody, right? Innovation is the transference of ideas that worked in the past and were abandoned, or that did not work earlier but now they work, but now they do work due to current favorable conditions. According to Restrepo, 1991, there's an interesting research about it. Innovation is the change also, which is normally deliberate, intentional or purposeful, and voluntary towards achieving a special result, which we're talking about in point number 5. Um, Innovation is the transforming action in order to improve and equilibrate a system or to create new ones, new systems. Innovation is the process, alternative proposal to traditional pedagogical practices, and it implies transformation of routines. And of course, there's a result, which is a conception and implementation of new and creative ideas. All of this to explain that of innovative techniques, right? And in these innovative techniques, it is absolutely important to talk about the new technologies. Why do I place new in parentheses, in brackets? Because we may think that technology is what is new. It is the computer, is the cell phone, or it is the smart television. That is the new thing. That's technology. Technology necessarily is this. But no, technology is everything that has been created to improve our lives since the writing, since the printing was created. That was technology. But there are new technologies which are the ones that we are having access to, and one of them is online education, which has different aspects: e-learning, electronic learning, blended learning or b-learning, and mobile learning. So learning wherever we go, right? When you have wherever you have a device that can be connected to the internet, you can do learning, and that's called mobile learning. um, the characteristics of the use of these new technologies to apply them to innovative strategies in the field that we are exploring today, we need to analyze the characteristics. There's intensive teacher student interaction, right? It's not like in the past, teachers and students interacted only during the class time. Now we interact 24 hours a day, 27 days a week. I mean, not during all of that lapse of time, but at any moment. I sometimes have students who write me at any time of the day or night, and any day. And in my particular case, I know that some teachers do, some professors do. They restrict the schedules or the times of the day or and the days of the week to receive messages. In my particular case, I don't do it because I don't conceive the idea of restricting social network because they are open all the time. But what I do explain is, okay, you can write me at any time, any day, any time of the day or night, or any day of the week, but give me some time, some decent time to respond, right? But that has produced that the interaction teacher student is more intensive. And among students, of course, all the time they are communicating things among themselves. Um, the functioning of these new technologies is more participative and bi-directional or multi-directional because it goes in all senses, right? There are new roles. There's something that I heard. It's not my own word. I haven't coined the term myself, but it is called prosumers or prosumidores in Spanish. Prosumers users is a combination of producers and consumers, right? Because they do not restrict themselves to consume contents like reading or reviewing them or viewing them, but they increase their involvement level in the process, producing their own content and publishing or posting them through simple tools like the ones that we use in social networks. Any questions up to this first part? Anybody who may want to make a comment or give me a question about this part? Okay, then I continue here. And this is a summary of the innovative strategies that I have brought today to talk about. And well, we have some very well known reading comprehension strategies like the reading of the text. Okay, we read the text and we reread it, although not in a very fully way, in a very deep way, but it's good to reread it, like doing some scanning or some skimming. And previous to that, normally previous to reading, even reading the first time, even reading the text the first time, we should do some activation of prior knowledge of the topic to be read out to be reading about. Okay, to use some context clues, or so to think about the context of the reading, and to get some clues to understand the topic. Could be previously, or could be during the reading, or could be after the reading. Infer meaning, because there's some information that we do not get clearly from the reading. Think aloud. Some people recommend voicing out loud the thoughts that the reading is producing in the reader while doing the action of consuming the reading. Summarize the story is absolutely important, because that helps the reader uh, um, make up a plot of the story behind, or the narrative behind the reading. Narrative is the academic word for stories, and is a word that has been used recently in the academic field. Locate new words, because reading has one special purpose, and it is to increase the vocabulary of the reader. If one reads a text and we get no new word, we have lost some opportunity to get the most of the reading. So one very important thing is to get new words, to locate new words, and to incorporate them to our passive vocabulary, or even to our active vocabulary, by using them later in our conversations or in our interactions in English. Make predictions. It is really important, because you that helps us develop new thoughts from the reading we are consuming. Use word attack strategies. Word attack strategies. So it could be the analysis of the words, right? The prefix, the root, and the suffix. Like in this case, reading. The prefix re is like again, read is the root, and the ing is the suffix, which in this case indicates activity. If we use these words, we may not need to absolutely use the dictionary at all times, but we can manage by applying this strategy to the comprehension of the text. Visualize. It is really important as you read to visualize what you're reading. Okay, visualize the story of your reading. It's important to use organized graphic organizers, right, in order to picture the story and to have the elements at a good place in your mind. And finally, it's good to evaluate understanding by asking ourselves what I what I learned about it, or what I understood about it, etc. Some people prefer to use assess, because it is like a more comprehensive process involving some elements that evaluation doesn't have. But anyway, it is important to do an action of asking ourselves what we understood from the reading. That's about the reading. There's some more information here about important reading tips that now I'm not reading in order not to make it more extensive, but we may talk about it later. If you write me, I will leave you my email so that you can contact me in order to get some additional discussion on this. And it's important. This is something that I have brought myself. The new reading trends is reading small units, not so long units, and that's something we can analyze in textbooks that are recent, that have been recently produced. The reading texts are not as long as in the past years. Like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 10 years ago, yes, there were texts of a whole page or 2 pages or even longer. But now the reading texts are much shorter, like half a page, the maximum. And that's because the new reader, the reader of this 21st century, no, not 21st century, the third decade of the 23rd century, the one that we're starting, is a reader that consumes small texts. Can read a lot, but in small portions. Like like when we read the wall on Facebook, we read short messages, but we read many of them. Right? We may read the Bible, the whole Bible. I tell my students, you may read the Bible when you read the wall on Facebook, because you spend 2 or 3 hours reading, but in small portions. as as it is in small portions, people read a lot, right? That's the tendency, the trend for the current readers, the readers of this third decade of this century. And about writing, it is important the use of automated tools to practice and assess reading comprehension and written composition. There's an example. This is this website. I'm going to share it later, and it is writeandimprove.com. On that website, you can find the opportunity to write texts and to submit them, and the system gives you some feedback with, well, corrections and hints on how to improve your comprehension, your composition. And they give you a report of how your writing is according to the TOEFL scale, right? Or the most widely used international tests of written English. Yes. So it is really important, and I recommend it lots. I recommend it lots. And finally, the use of gamification to increase students' motivation, which is a very important topic, because motivation is that force that helps us do things better and keep on going with the activities. In this case, the academic activity of reading and writing. So both activities are really important, especially in the topic of in the field of the academia. But if we do not keep our students motivated, we are falling into something that normally happens, which is that students lack motivation, and then they say, "No, teacher, I don't like to read today." And we all know that reading is something that hasn't been tackled, hasn't been approached in the most with the highest interest in our schools. Writing, even less. Many people say, "No, I prefer to speak and listen, but I don't like to read or write. I don't like it much." And like my brother Danny Hernandez, my colleague and coworker, says, to me, reading is like the veggies of the meals. Something that I don't really like, but something that I acknowledge as something very good for my health. So reading is really important, really, really important for increasing our level of the language, any language we're learning. But it is nothing. It is something that we haven't increased. We haven't sparked or triggered lots of motivation about. So we need to work on that, especially as teachers of English, especially as professors at the universities. We need to try to do something to spark that motivation in students. Motivation is a very important topic, but also a very wide one, on which we could have a later talk, but on another occasion, because it takes time to talk about it. But I can tell you that it is really important, because it is the force that moves us human beings to doing things that are really important for us. And again, writing is something that really helps us improve the way we think. Many people think or that According to our mental capacity, we can produce excellent pieces of written texts or speak spoken uh, segments. But according to some research, it is exactly the opposite. By speaking and by writing, we can improve our capacity, mental capacity. So it is interesting, and I tell my students, write to be smarter, speak to be smarter. Teacher, isn't it the opposite? If I am smarter, I can speak and write more and better. Okay, one thing to the other, and the other thing to the first. So it is important to be doing it all the time, to be practicing reading and writing. And about this website, writeandimprove.com, I'm going to show you mm, the the website in order to have some practice about it. Let me go here to this part. Okay, I think now you can see my screen. This is the website, Write and Improve. Observe that you can start working on it even without an account. But if you create your account, it is much better because your records will be recorded, and you will have the opportunity to keep a track, keep some track of your work, the work you do wishfully, in a with lots of with a high frequency. Write and Improve is a free tool developed by the university by Cambridge University that helps students improve their written expression in English, right? So we can see the good characteristic that it offers, the good features, the good things that we can get by doing some work here. You can choose among hundreds of tasks of all levels, and or you may create your own tasks. And this is what I told you about. It sends your composition. You may send your composition and receive your result based on a scale, international scales of the Common European Framework, which may help you determine or know or learn about your level according to this important international scale. And you get feedback, instantaneous or immediate feedback on the aspects that you may improve in your written composition. And after that, you may do the edit, the necessary edit in order to improve it, and then send it again, and they will send you a second feedback, a third feedback, as necessary. And we can try doing some practice as long as the system helps. Sometimes it gets a little stuck according to the number of users at the moment, but I we may try. And what is important is that we know the tool. We explore the tool. Later you may do it on your own and may spend some time to do it. For example, here, to start improving, choose the best level for you. I always recommend using the beginner level because, well, we may think, no, I'm an advanced writer. Okay, if you really are an advanced writer, do it. Choose the advanced level here. But if not, try the beginner level. It wouldn't make no it wouldn't make no harm to you trying the beginner level in order to see how easy it is to you. Okay. And here, for example, you can start with a story, with a paragraph, uh, and choose the task according to your preference. Okay. Well, I would like to know if there are questions up to this point of the this presentation.
Yes, teacher Hernandez, we have some question up here. Would you
please.
think reading once on the day is a great exercise to increase our reading skills?
Can you repeat the first part, please, Julian?
Would you think reading once on the day is a great exercise to increase our reading skills?
Yes, Julian, right? Yes.
Yes, teacher.
I think it is really important to write once a day. It is even better writing once a day for some weeks that than writing once a week for months or years. So frequency is key to improve your abilities and the way you and your confidence in this field of writing. Also with reading, if you read once a day, okay, it doesn't have to be 2 or 3 hours, but some minutes. You don't need to separate so much time from your day to devote to this activity.
Teacher,
Other
if we
question?
don't keep in
Yes.
mind, we're going to say another question for you. If we don't keep in mind writing processes, is it going to be hard to increase English as a second language?
That's a very important question. Like they say, uh, you may improve your level of English just by speaking and listening, but there will be some deficiency in your preparation as a professional because, well, reading and writing are known or are told to be academic skills, more academic skills, less less colloquial skills than speaking and listening. But still, we need them. We need these academic skills to have a very complete range of abilities in our development as users of the language. So yes, I think it is very important to practice these skills in order to be a complete user of the language.
Thank you.
Professor Hernandez, I would like to make you a
Yes, sir.
question.
Yes.
And you know, you were talking about technology and technology devices that we use nowadays in education. So, my question is, do you think technology is changing the way we read?
Absolutely, absolutely. In the past, we read from books all the time. Now we read from devices all the time, from screens, and that is affecting our development of skills in different ways. Biologically, because it affects our sight, but we are not to talk about that because we're not experts in health. Still, we know, and we should be conscious. We should be aware of the impact that this is having. And in my particular case, I recommend reading from textbooks. Textbooks shouldn't disappear. We should keep reading from textbooks because number one, it's healthier reading from a textbook, from a printed textbook, and secondly, because we may highlight more easily. I know we may highlight with these technological tools, but we are freer to highlight in a more creative way and an easier way from textbooks, for example. I have an experience. Once I taught a man from Japan. You know, Japan is one of the highest country, highly most highly advanced countries in technology, and I taught him Spanish, and I gave him some material, digital material, PDF, and he told me, "Please give me some printed material." I thought, printed material? He said, "Yes, because I like to highlight, to make draws, etc." So, if a person from a so highly developed country uh, still uses this kind of material, why not us? I mean, we should keep reading from textbooks, and that's something that I recommend to my students. If you have any other question.
Yes. Uh, Teacher, you were talking about the motivation. So, besides motivation, which other factor is important when we read?
Well, motivation is really important, but yes, there are other factors. Other factors like the mood in which the reader is, which is connected to motivation. If you are in a good mood, if you are in the mood for reading a lot, you may have a good motivation for tackling, for approaching some task. So I recommend trying to be in a good mood when you read. Reading when you are in a good mood. Well, but then you would depend on your mood to be able to do the reading tasks, and that's not probably possible. That's not probable. That's not possible all the time. So better to try to control your mood and take it to a good level in order to be willing to read every day. Like I said at the beginning of the question section, in order to read every day. Try to have a good mood in order to read every day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for considering me for this important event, and I wish you lots of success, not only today but also in your forthcoming events.
Thank you.
Thank you so
We are
much.
grateful of having you here in our university.
Thank you so much. It's great to have met you and all of the team at your important university.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Well, hi everyone. My name is Susana Silva. I'm 20 years old and currently I'm studying in bilingual education and I'm in the fourth semester. Right now, Christy Horn Castro is going to talk about English is fun. Cómo motivar a tus estudiantes a aprender inglés usando estrategias divertidas, fáciles y prácticas. Okay, I'm going to talk about a little bit Christy. Christy has a bachelor's degree in early childhood education from Emmanuel College, a master's degree in reading and literacy from Walden University, in a certified ESL, English as a second language. Well, teacher with over 13 years of experience teaching in both the public and private sectors. Well, she's currently serving as the General Director and Bilingual Director at Fundación Colegio Cristiano El Salvador. Well, she has been living here in Barranquilla around for the past 8 years, and also, in addition, she helps her husband. He's a pastor, the church Camino, Verdad y Vida. Her interests include discovering dynamic ways to improve classroom learning, language acquisition, and learning how to make learning English fun and engaging, especially during this time of virtual education. So please, Christy.
Good morning, everyone. How are you today? It is a privilege for me to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. It's always nice to have an opportunity to share with other students who are aspiring to be English teachers. Can you hear me okay? I've had a little bit of internet interference.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
clearly.
Perfect. Thank you. And this morning, this morning, I would like to share with you a presentation. Got me. One moment, please. Okay. This is my first time using this particular program. Can everyone, let's see. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see my screen yet?
No,
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. This is my first time that I have ever used this platform, so I'm learning something new today. Okay, let's see. Let's try again. Okay. And now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Let's see. It may have something to do with my internet. Let's see. It's telling me, okay. Give me one moment. Apparently it's blocking my You'll give me one moment. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out why it's got a privacy setting that's not letting me share the screen. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Thank you for your patience.
You're welcome.
It's okay, don't worry.
Let's see. Okay. Apparently. Okay, let's see. I think. Okay, apparently it's not going to let me share my screen. Apparently the system is blocking my computer for some reason. I'm not sure why. Yeah, it's not going to let me share my screen. Bueno. Okay, well, apparently it's not going to let me show my PowerPoint. I'm not sure if there's a way from your place to share it, but we'll go ahead and continue. I'm going to keep trying to share it. Let's see. Okay. Okay, let's see.
No.
Can you listen to me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. I was asking to you, how's your morning going? Are you excited to be here with us? Tell us more about yourself while your presentation is presented.
Okay, I apologize. I'm not sure why this is not working, but well, my name is Christy Castro. As you mentioned, I've been living in Barranquilla now for 8 years. I have 3 children, and I married a Colombian. So my experience with Spanish has obviously been firsthand. When I moved here to Colombia 8 years ago, obviously I did not speak any Spanish. It was a process for me to learn Spanish. I had learned a few words, a few phrases, but when we moved here, obviously it became necessary to learn English. So whenever we had our first daughter, we really wanted our daughter to become bilingual. And so that's kind of when I started studying my master's shortly before she was born. I came to a point where I decided that I wanted my daughter to be bilingual because I realized the benefits that being bilingual has for children. We know that the studies show that bilingual children perform better on standardized testing. They use both sides of their brain. So being bilingual has many, many benefits. So as you can see on the next slide, if you can please continue to the next slide. Thank you for your help with my technical difficulties. The next slide is the agenda.
Can you see your presentation, Miss?
Yes, I can. Yes, sí lo puedo ver. ¿Me pueden
Okay.
mostrar la siguiente página?
Yes.
Super. Okay. Muchas gracias. Me salvaron. Okay, so this is my family. As you can see, I have 3 children. Isabella is the oldest, Gabriela and Joel. And they are my motivation behind being a teacher. I want my children to have the opportunity to grow up to be bilingual individuals, and they have been a huge source of my motivation, and I have learned a lot from watching them in their process of becoming bilingual. If you could please show the next slide, the agenda. What is the purpose for today? What would I like to share with you all today? What I would like to share with you guys today is a couple of practical strategies that you can use in order to help improve your students' level of English. Si pueden seguir la próxima slide, por favor. Super. Aquí podemos ver la agenda. This is what we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, we know that many times in these trainings, we receive a lot of academic information. But I think as teachers, a lot of times we don't have the opportunity to receive ideas or strategies that are practical that we can begin immediately incorporating into our classroom. So I hope that at the end of this presentation, you're able to leave this training motivated, excited, and with a couple of ideas on how you can continue to improve your language, but also the language of your future students. The next slide, please. I have a small video that I would like to show. No voy a mostrar el video completo, sino como 1 minuto y 45 segundos, por favor. Vamos a ver ese video that's called I Would Like to Buy a Hamburger. I'm not sure if you can hear it or not. Okay. Are you able to hear the sound? I'm not sure if the sound is working. Okay, obviously this video, I don't know how many of you have seen this video, but it's called the Black Panther. And in this particular video clip, it's I'll have to share it with you in the chat, but it's a short video that is interacting or showing a person who's trying to learn English. And in this particular case, the woman is his teacher, and she's trying to teach him how to say, I would like to buy a hamburger. And obviously he's unable to say it correctly. She keeps correcting him. He keeps trying to speak correctly again. But obviously the pronunciation is difficult for him, and both him and his teacher become very frustrated. And the question that I have for you today is, how many of you have felt this way in one of your English classes? The teacher is telling you to repeat something, you're repeating, and then she's saying, no, that's not right, repeat again. I think all of us have probably felt that way. In my case, I know many times in Spanish, I'm saying what I think is correct, and someone's saying, no, Christy, you're saying that wrong, or that's not the right pronunciation. And we have to remember that if we feel that way as adults or as teachers, or we have felt that way in some point in our life, our students obviously feel the same way. So I'm sure that many of our students in our classrooms have had moments where they are frustrated, they don't understand, and they just want to quit because they don't understand English. So let's talk a little bit about what are some benefits of language learning. If you can continue to the next slide, please. We all know that there are many benefits to learning another language. We know that we, as students, we obviously have valued the importance of learning another language. You'll have to click it again so that the image will show up. Here's a very interesting image that I always like to share with my students, and this talks about benefits of language learning. Here in Colombia, I've had the opportunity to teach students from preschool all the way through adults. And what's so interesting about this particular image is that it shows us that there are benefits to being bilingual throughout our entire lives. Being bilingual opens many doors and gives us many opportunities. There are studies that show that being bilingual even helps us in older age. People who are bilingual are less likely to have problems such as Alzheimer's or dementia, because whenever you are bilingual, you're utilizing both sides of your brain. You can see that whenever we're young, the youth, it helps them with life skills, problem solving. They have better test scores. When it goes on to adulthood, there's higher levels of success in college. Typically, bilingual individuals earn more money, which I think all of us would like to earn a little more money. It makes you more employable. It gives you a higher, whenever you go to interview, you're more likely to get the job simply because you are bilingual. So as you can see in this image, there are many benefits to being bilingual. And it's important that we help our students understand that it is important for you to learn English. It's not because many times I tell my students, English is important, and it's not because I'm a gringa. English is important because it's going to open many doors for you. It's going to provide you with opportunities throughout your lifetime. We could go to the next slide, please. So what is our challenge? What is it that we have to do? What is it that we need to work on as English teachers and even as English students? We need to work hard to change the opinion of our students. Many of these following phrases: English is hard, I don't understand, I can't, it's boring, I don't like English. I'm sure many of you have either said these statements or maybe you have heard your students say them. What we have to realize is if we can change these opinions that our students have about English, if we can minimize the number of students that have these feelings towards English, then we're going to be able to accomplish much more with our students. I always say that the battle is in the mind. If we can get to our students here and make them understand that it is possible and they can have a change of opinion, then we're going to be able to accomplish a lot more with our students. The next slide, please. This is one of my favorite quotes. To me, it is something that's very confrontational as a teacher. It says, the motivation plays a very important part in the process of learning another language. The teachers of English or of other languages can't teach effectively if we don't understand the relationship between motivation and its effect in the acquisition of another language. If we don't understand, as mentioned earlier, the previous presenter, he was talking about motivation. Motivation is the single most important factor in teaching and learning another language. We can continue to the next slide, please. A couple of reasons why motivation is important in another language, because it helps with the persistence and the effort that the student puts forth. It helps improve the initiative of the student. Obviously, it improves their abilities to have the cognitive processing is improved when they have motivation. And obviously, when a student is motivated, their overall achievement, their overall accomplishments are very much more superior. So let's talk really quickly about the two types of motivation. You can go to the next slide, please. We know that there's intrinsic motivation, which is the type of motivation that comes from within. Intrinsic motivation has to do with I do something because I think it's important, or I do something because I believe that it's something that's going to help me, or it's something that's going to benefit me, or simply because I enjoy doing it. If you can go to the next slide, please. Los dos tipos de motivación. Eso. Okay, perfect. So we have the intrinsic motivation, which has to do with something internal, right? But then we also have extrinsic motivation, which is the type of motivation that comes when a student wants to learn something or wants to do something because they're going to receive some type of reward or a punishment if they do or don't. Obviously, in today's world and in today's society, there are less students that have intrinsic motivation. There are less and less students that have that personal motivation, and students are becoming more and more accustomed to having extrinsic motivation. They want a sticker, or they want a piece of candy, or they want some type of a prize. And unfortunately, what happens is if we're not careful, and as teachers, there's nothing wrong with rewarding our students. I think it's great. stickers and compliments and prizes, little toys. All of those have their place in teaching language, but we have to be careful. We want to teach our students to have that internal motivation, because at some point in time, there may not be a reward. At some point in time, there may not be a punishment. So we have to teach them the importance, why they need to learn the language, or why it's important for them, so that they can have self-motivation, and that they can learn because they want to, learn because they enjoy it, and learn because they feel like it's something important that's going to serve them long term. If you can go to the next slide, please. It says, ¿Cómo podemos motivar mejor a nuestros estudiantes? Okay, so what are some ways, some practical ways that we can motivate our students? Okay, number one, we need to create a secure and positive atmosphere. This for me is the most important. In my classes, when I teach English, I do not allow my students to make fun of students when they make mistakes. I encourage my students to make mistakes. As the previous presenter was mentioning, if we don't speak, if we don't write, if we don't practice, we're not going to get better. Making mistakes is part of the process, and we have to make an atmosphere in our classroom where our students feel comfortable and they're not afraid to make mistakes. Obviously, we need to be a teacher that's excited, that's motivated. If we think that English is boring, or we present English in a boring way, then obviously our students are going to imitate what we're projecting. Number three, we need to always value and celebrate the efforts of our students and the advances, even if they're super small. An advance might be, okay, here's Sally. Sally never participates in class, but today Sally raised her hand and answered a question. Maybe Sally answered incorrectly, but we need to celebrate the fact that Sally, out of her own accord, decided to participate. Those are our advances, and those are progresses that we need to celebrate in our students. Number four, we need to work very hard to try to involve all of our students. This has been much more difficult in the virtual learning world. Whenever we have our students with us in person, it's easier to encourage the motivation of them and to encourage that they're involved. But sometimes with the virtual learning, the students take advantage and they hide, or they turn off their cameras, or they don't respond when you ask them a question. So it's definitely a challenge in these virtual times that we're living. Again, number five, it's good to use initiatives. You can use stickers. You can give them notes on their homework. You can give out candies. You can give special privileges. There's nothing wrong with using incentives sometimes. Obviously, you don't want to do it all the time, but it motivates kids. Who doesn't want to earn a sticker or a piece of candy? We have to also try to provide our students with things that are going to motivate them and make them feel proud of what they've accomplished. Number six, obviously, we need to try to keep our students excited about what we're doing. Don't create a routine that's so predictable. Sometimes as teachers, we tend to teach the same way, the same order, the same style, and we need to break out of the mold. Sometimes we need to do something that's different, something that the students aren't expecting. One year, I was teaching about the life cycle of a butterfly. And I just really felt like the classroom that I was working with were very apathetic. They didn't pay a lot of attention. And I just really wanted a way to kind of get their attention. So I went to the store and I spent 3,000 pesos and I bought gusanitos, and I gave every student, I walked into my classroom, I said, good morning, guys, how are you? And I began to put on every desk un gusanito, a little worm on every desk. And of course, immediately the students were like, oh, what is this? Why is she giving us candy? Wow, wow, wow. I immediately had my students' attention. And I used that as a hook to get my students' attention. They wanted to know, why is Mrs. Castro giving me a worm? Why is she giving a gusanito? And I used that little gusanito to start talking about that a butterfly begins as an egg, and then a larva or a caterpillar. So there's simple things that we can do to get that attention, to change up the routine, to surprise our students. And obviously, as I've mentioned previously, we have to constantly be explaining to our students why. Why do you need to learn another language? Why is it important? Students forget, we forget, and we have to constantly be reminding them. I know one of the biggest questions that I used to ask in high school is, ¿Para qué sirve esto? Right? We all ask that question. What good does this do? How is this going to help me? And we need to be constantly reminding our students why they need to learn another language. Next slide, please. So now that we understand the importance about motivation, what now? What do we do now? You can go to the next slide, please. One thing that I have learned, siguiente por favor. One thing that I have learned is that the vocabulary is fundamental for the teaching of English, because without a vocabulary, without enough vocabulary words, students are not going to be able to understand, and they're much less likely to be able to express their ideas. And I love this quote that says, sin gramática se puede transmitir muy poco, pero sin vocabulario no se puede transmitir nada. As a teacher, this is very, very confrontational, because many times we spend or we dedicate the majority of our time to teaching grammar. But these quotes are telling us, are reminding us that if students don't have words, if they don't have words, they don't have vocabulary, they can't communicate, they can't understand, they can't speak, they can't write, they can't read. So the foundation of our teaching needs to be based on vocabulary. Next slide, please. Siguiente. So what are the 5 stages of learning acquisition? I love this chart because this starts talking about the different stages of learning acquisition. As you can see, there's a silent and receptive stage. This is where, for example, in preschool, you may go into the classroom and say, "Good morning, guys, how are you?" And the kids say this, they don't say, or they say good. That is the beginning stages. The beginning stages is when you have toddlers or babies, you're constantly speaking to them, and they may say 1 or 2 words. That's the first stage. As it goes on, you can see that they're early prediction, where they have a limited number of words. They're able to create small phrases, simple sentences, and then we continue on to speech emergence, which is where they're able to produce more complex sentences. They can make connections to things. They can correct some of their own errors. And then we have the intermediate fluency, and then we have the advanced fluency, which is obviously when students at this point, when they get to number 4 or number 5, they have acquired quite a bit of vocabulary. Therefore, it's easier for them to express themselves, to understand, and to communicate better. So what order, next slide please, siguiente. What order should we teach in? So as a teacher, you may be asking me, okay, what order do I need to be teaching my students? I love this image. To me, this makes it so clear. What is the first thing that we should be focusing on? We should be focusing on listening. If you think about a baby is born and the baby doesn't communicate. The baby doesn't understand yet, but as the mother starts saying, mira, tetero, 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 they make an association that every time mom holds this bottle, she says the word tetero. So this must be tetero. So the first thing is listening. You're talking to them. They're listening to music, to songs, to you reading. Even though they're not speaking themselves, their brain is assimilating and is learning and is absorbing language. Obviously, the next stage, the next part that we need to focus on is the speaking. When they have the words, they have the understanding, obviously the next part comes speaking. Typically, if you have a student that has begun a process of acquisition of another language from a very young age, an example, my oldest daughter, from the time she was born, my husband spoke to her in Spanish and I spoke to her in English. She understood both languages from a very young age. She did not always respond, or for example, sometimes my husband would ask her a question in Spanish and she would respond in English, or I would ask her something in English and she would respond in Spanish. It takes a while for them to realize who do I speak Spanish to, who do I speak English to, etc. But the next phase is speaking. That following that is reading. Once they have vocabulary, they're speaking, they're understanding, then you can start to focus on the reading part. And as you can see, the very last part, the very last thing that we should be teaching, or the very last thing that comes through the process of acquisition of another language is writing. Writing is definitely a more complicated ability because it involves multiple components. It involves understanding, vocabulary, the ability to speak, to express yourself. So it's always one of the last areas that we tend to accomplish whenever we're learning another language. Don't misunderstand me. It's important that from a young age, when they're speaking, we start helping them to associate the spoken words with the written words. You can do a lot of modeling for that. Whenever it comes to writing, you can write on the board and teach them that this word is I, this word is have. You can help them pass more quickly through those stages, but we can't skip over any of these stages. You have to go through all of these stages. You have to go through those 5 stages of language acquisition. It doesn't matter if you start learning another language at 3 years old, or if you start learning a language at 50 years old, you have to go through all of those processes. Siguiente, por favor. Okay, so the big question is, how do you do this in your classroom? How are we going to do this in our classroom? What I want to do today is I want to give you a couple of very practical activities or games that you can play with your students. They do not require a lot of materials. They're not expensive. You don't have to have a lot of fancy props. They're very easy to do. You could go to the next slide, please. So these are a couple of strategies that are fun, they're easy, and they're practical that you can use to teach vocabulary to your students. One of my favorite, you can go ahead and open them up. One of my first one is Minute to Win It. I'm going to very briefly explain to you how these games work. And Minute to Win It, what you do is you tell your students, okay, I'm going to give you a topic, and I'm going to give you 1 minute to write as many of the words or vocabulary words that you can associate to this in 1 minute. So for example, vamos a intentar hacerlo. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys 1 minute. You have 1 moment, y yo quiero que tú escribes todas las palabras que puedes asociar con el tema que les voy a dar. Okay, so here we go. The first topic that I'm going to do is occupations or jobs. So what you do is you begin writing words: police, nurse, teacher, doctor, firefighter, etc. So the students go and they're writing down. They can work in groups, a group of students, or they can work individually. They can work in pairs. It's very versatile. And you have them write as many words as they know that are associated to that. And they have 1 minute to do it. So when the minute's up, stop. And you have the students, you can either have them say the words out loud. And as they're saying, you're writing the words on the board. What are you doing? Some of your students are going to have really long lists, and some of your students are going to have really short lists. But by letting your students share what words they came up with, you're exposing the other students that maybe don't have as strong of vocabulary words to new words. It's a great way to begin, for example, a new topic. You can do Minute to Win It if you're going to be learning about family members. Okay, we're going to talk about family. Okay, guys, I want you to write or draw as many words as you know that have to do with family. Another one is called Last Man Standing. This is one where you have all of your students stand up, and it's the same concept. You give them a topic, but you go around the room. So you say, okay, we start with the first student. He gives you a word. He says mom. The second student, dad. The third student, uncle. The fourth student, cousin. The fifth student, ay, miss, no sé, no sé. They have to sit down. So what you do is you do that until the very last person is standing. And the last person who's standing is the winner. Hot potato. This is when you put all of your students in a circle and you have a bean bag or a ball or a peluche something, and you pass the object around the circle of the students. And you wherever you can do it with music, or you can just say hot potato, stop. And whoever has the object in their hand has to give a word that's related to the topic. Another fun activity is called Guess the Word. It's something that you can do on the board. You put a student with facing his classmates, and on the back of the board, you write a word. For example, pizza. The student sitting in the chair cannot look at the board, and all of his classmates have to give him clues as to what the word is. They can't say the word, but they can say it's yellow, it's triangle, it has cheese, it has pepperoni, it's a food. and they try to help their classmate guess the word. You're forcing your students to practice speaking. And I can tell you from experience that when I have played this game with my students, even my reluctant speakers, the ones that get nervous to talk, they participate. There's many other games that I can share with you later, but for the sake of time, let's go ahead and continue to the next activity. The next slide, please. Number 2, you can work on cloze activities. Cloze activities are very helpful. El siguiente, por favor. They're very helpful. This is great for EFIX prep. I also work with 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students, preparing them for EFIX. And cloze activities are a great activity that's simple. You can do it with songs. You can do it with excerpts from text or literature. You can use scripts from movies or from video clips. And it teaches students to use vocabulary in context. I do this with really young students. Like if we're talking about prepositions of place, I might have a couple sentences or a text and I erase all the prepositions and my students have to fill in the blank. Other options that you can use are video clips and movies. You can put the subtitles, obviously, in English, because that is helping them with their listening and their understanding. And then, of course, it is very, very important that we're constantly using images and visual aids. We learn naturally by association. And sometimes we expect students to learn other languages without association, which you can't do. You naturally, your brain makes associations, so visual images are very important. Things like vocabulary cards, pictures. You can provide them with different scenes like a lake or a mountain or beaches so they can build up their necessary knowledge that they need. All of those are a few quick, easy strategies. A lot of times I like to begin my class time playing one of those games to kind of activate their brain, activate their vocabulary, get them in the English thinking mode. So hopefully some of those can be helpful to you. Siguiente, por favor. Siguiente, por favor. Vamos a pasar esos dos, porfis. Y vamos a llegar aquí. Quería mostrarles un ejemplo de los cloze activities. So sigue adelante, por favor. Vamos a pasar unos aquí para cuestión de tiempo. This right here is explaining the importance of cloze activities. This tells you how you basically create a cloze activity. There is a link here at the bottom that's called Free Online Cloze Generator. It is a free resource that you can use to create your own personal cloze activities. I don't know if maybe we can share that link in the chat at some point. It's been very helpful. For me, it saves a lot of time and it produces a very nice activity sheet. And I believe that you can even choose a virtual option as well. Siguiente, por favor. Here's an example of a cloze activity that I did last year in 3rd grade. We were talking about nouns. We know that nouns are persons, places, or things. And as you can see, I took a text from the Bible. It was a Bible story. At the school that I'm currently at, it's a Christian school, so we try to incorporate the Bible into all of our subject areas. So as you can see, I blanked out all of the nouns, okay? And then down here, I provided them with all of the words that I had removed. So this was an activity that we used. Obviously, I didn't do this at the beginning of our unit about nouns. This was kind of when we were finishing up. But this gives you a little example. You can do them by parts of speech. You can do it according to proper nouns or pronouns or prepositions of place. You can do it past tense verbs. There's so many options. And this is really helpful because in EFIX, they are presented with incomplete texts that they have to complete. Siguiente, por favor. Here is another example of a cloze activity that I use with a lot of frequency in high school. It's the song You've Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story. Everyone knows that song in Spanish and in English. So what we did here is basically went through and erased several words. This one does not have a particular type of speech. It was just kind of using context to determine what's the missing word. But as you can see here, I have the music. So we would listen to the song and they would have the words in front of them. Then the second time we would listen to it again and they would try to complete as many words as they can. And then ultimately we would listen to it one more time and they would fill in the blanks. And of course we would go over it together at the end of the activity. Siguiente, por favor. When it comes to movies or video clips, obviously when we're using videos or movie clips, this helps to improve their conversation abilities. It helps them to improve their comprehension of spoken text. And obviously if you have the subtitles, it also improves their comprehension of written text as well. It also helps to formate cultural interest and just that ability to, you can teach certain principles or morals. And obviously it helps with the pronunciation and dialect. Siguiente, por favor. Here I have a clip of a movie. Eso, obviamente, por cuestión de tiempo, no vamos a tener tiempo de verlo, pero siguiente, por favor. Eso is a little activity that I did with a movie clip from a movie called Finding Nemo. And there's a excellent website that's called Teach English with Movies. Teach English with Movies. It is also free. And it is a great website. It has short video clips from 2 to 3 minutes, and it gives you the lesson that's completely done. In this particular case, all I did was I typed out the conversation that was happening in the video clip, and I left out some words. In this case, you can tell that our focus was contractions. So as you can see, all of the spaces are where I removed the contractions, and we worked together to complete this activity with the students using contractions in context. Siguiente. And as I mentioned, of course, images and visual aids are super important. Simple things such as putting stickers and labels on objects in the classroom are very helpful. You can use images on the computer. You can use flashcards. All of those are super helpful whenever teaching a foreign language. Siguiente. Here you can see that there's a concept of bits. You can see that there's an excellent resource as well called Elf Learning that has like musical interactive flashcards that have been very helpful in these virtual classrooms. They kind of repeat vocabulary, and it helps with the association of the word and the sound. Siguiente. Here I want to give you a couple of excellent resources. These resources are free. They don't have any cost. They're Elf Learning. Are very helpful to all ages, not just younger students, but also even the older students. They're helpful for that vocabulary practice and association. Siguiente, por favor. Okay, and to finish up, I wanted to show you an activity that I like to do also with my students. I will show them different images, different scenes, and I will have them, we'll talk about what we see in the image, and whatever word that comes to their mind. Image, they might say peaceful, water, sand, blue, grass, beach, ocean. And just by showing an image, you're giving them a topic conversation. If your students are a little more advanced, you might say, okay, what are some activities that you like to do when you go to the beach or when you go to the
Cuando pienso en los talentos de las personas, pienso que los talentos son los que pueden construir nuestra leyenda personal. ¿Te has preguntado cómo puedo transformar mi historia de vida? Si tienes un talento para cambiar tu historia, nosotros te ayudamos a evolucionarla. Tu leyenda personal está en una educación sin límites.
Con doble L. No, con doble L. Idioma, con idiomas. Así.
Cuando pienso en los talentos de las personas, pienso que los talentos son los que pueden construir nuestra leyenda personal.
Hola, soy Estefanía Cárdenas.
Y yo, Moisés Perales.
Y somos parte de la Corporación Universitaria
Te
Americana.
invitamos a que conozcas sobre esta gran familia que durante años ha venido trabajando en servicios de educación.
En la Americana contamos con programas de pregrado presencial, pregrado virtual, posgrados y educación continuada.
Actualmente estamos ofreciendo un subsidio solidario por toda tu carrera y además nuestras inscripciones son gratis.
Aprovecha los subsidios solidarios y comienza a construir tus sueños.
Elige una educación sin límites.
Elige
la familia americana.
Yo decidí regresar porque estoy lista para seguir construyendo mi futuro en mi institución.
Yo volví a reencontrarme de forma segura con los docentes y los estudiantes.
Tú también puedes elegir tomar tus clases de forma segura.
Porque los sueños no se detienen en la americana. ¡Anímate!
Cuando pienso en los talentos de las personas, pienso que los talentos son los que pueden construir nuestra leyenda personal. ¿Te has preguntado cómo puedo transformar mi historia de vida? Si tienes un talento para cambiar tu historia, nosotros te ayudamos a evolucionarla. Tu leyenda personal está en una educación sin límites.
Hello.
Hello.
We are sorry because Miss Christie had a connection problem, but she's going to be with us in a while, and so excuses.
Hi, Mr.
Hi,
Christie.
Miss Christie.
Can you listen to us?
Can you hear us?
Miss Christie.
Miss Christie, can you hear? Well, while Miss Christie is getting back, please leave us the question in the comments.
Could you comment below, please? And we are going to respond every single question that you have when Miss Christie come back to the conference.
Hello everyone. Hello partners. We are grateful of having you here, and we had a connection problem with Miss Christie, but she's with us in a while. And we are going to read your questions
And comments.
and comments.
Well.
Yes, when Miss Christie come back. And
Oh, she's here again.
she's here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries. Don't worry.
It's okay.
You can carry on with your presentation.
Thank you. Basically, I'm finishing up. I was just showing you the
We cannot hear you. Miss Christie, we're not listening to you.
Cuando pienso en los talentos de las personas, pienso que los talentos son los que pueden construir nuestra leyenda personal. ¿Te has preguntado cómo puedo transformar mi historia de vida? Si tienes un talento para cambiar tu historia, nosotros te ayudamos a evolucionarla. Tu leyenda personal está en una educación sin límites.
Okay, everyone, about the speech that Christy was sharing to us, would you remind what she said? She said that she have 2 children, and okay, she's getting bad.
Miss Christie,
yes.
can you listen to us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Please go ahead with the presentation.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Thank you for your patience. Basically, what I was finishing up saying is that in these particular images, they serve as many different purposes. They can be a communication piece where you have your students talk about what they're seeing, vocabulary, blue, water, sand, ocean, etc. But then for other students that are more advanced, you can have them do sentences. I like to go to the beach. I make sandcastles at the beach, etc. And you can even use this as a tool for writing. You can say, okay, guys, we've talked about vocabulary. We've talked about activities that we do at the beach. What are some things I want you to write for me, a couple sentences about your day at the beach? Siguiente, por favor. So these are a couple images. Obviously, here's another image. My students love this one because it's a muddy pig, and they like to write stories about the pig. Siguiente. And here, for example, is a city. So words that might be associated as busy, noisy, loud, people. These are great conversation starters. You can show one at the beginning of the class and say, okay, guys, we're going to do a picture talk. We're going to talk about what we see. We're going to talk about what we would hear. We're going to talk about what we would do. And it's a really great way to get kids motivated. They're able to see with their eyes. They're able to envision themselves there in that place. So it's been very helpful in my classes. Okay, and the last slide. I obviously, as I mentioned earlier, siguiente, por favor, el último. I work in a Christian school, and something that I always tell my students is that everything that we do, we should do it as unto the Lord, because the things that we do as educators, and if you are a believer or if you are a Christian educator, the impact that you're having on your students goes much beyond you teaching them English. It's something that's going to transform their lives, and indirectly, it's something that impacts and transforms your city, your country, and the world. We know that we have students under us. They're going to be great people, going to accomplish many things. So thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate your patience, I apologize for the internet issues. Of course, it is the virtual world. And of course, to ask it very quickly if anyone had any questions or comments that they would like to add. Of course, I'd love to hear them. So I believe you can write any questions that you might have in the chat, or I'd be more than happy to try to answer any of them. Well, if there's, okay.
Okay, how to motivate who do not like English?
Okay, that's a hard one. I think that every classroom that we have, there's always students who don't like English. I think number one, the first step is letting them realize, like, it really is important. It's something that they need. It's something that even though right now they may not understand exactly how important it is, it's something that's going to bring benefits to them. I think one of the big motivators for my students is when they say, "Niece, is it true that we can make like $6,000 or $7,000 more a year if we're bilingual?" Yes, that's true. You have to explain to students the why. Why do you need to learn? And of course, I think motivation has a lot to do with the way that we present English to our students. If we're constantly teaching a boring lesson where everything's the same, where we're not using different strategies, obviously students are going to be boring because we're presenting English in a boring way. I think that the acquisition of a different language should be something exciting. Speaking from personal experience, the opportunity that I've had to learn Spanish has opened a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities for myself as far as the professional area. It's given me opportunities to have friendships and relationships in other countries that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to have. And I just think that the motivation, you have to help students realize the why, help them understand the importance of the learning of another language. And of course, as we mentioned today, there's many different strategies that you can incorporate to help your students change their opinion of that English is boring. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Miss Christy.
Okay, Miss Christy.
We would like to ask you a question.
Sure.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Miss Christy?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, I would like to ask you a question. And you know, we are starting to be teachers, and well, you were talking about abilities to learn, or maybe or to teach to our students. And I would like to ask you, which ability is more important to teach to young children? And maybe we have children between 2 years old and 5 years old, and maybe it's pretty hard to teach them how to read, for example. So, which other ability can we teach them?
I think that obviously we can never lose sight of the desarrollo del estudiante. We have to remember that there are certain abilities that they're going to acquire at certain ages. Of course, there's always students that can surprise us. You know, we've heard of the students that are geniuses that start reading at 2 years old, but that's not usually the norm. I think with younger students, the most important part is giving them exposure to English, is providing them with an atmosphere that's bilingual. I think sometimes we underestimate just the simple process of speaking with our students is so important, because even though they're in that non-responsive stage or they're in that receptive stage, their brains are forming connections, their brains are assimilating new words, they're understanding what we're saying. And if we continue to teach them songs, music, poems, to read stories. I am a total fanatic for literature. To me, one of the most important things that we underestimate is reading to our students, reading them stories, children's stories, simple things like that. You're building up a super strong foundation of vocabulary, which is going to be so incredibly helpful to them when they start getting older, 4, 5, 6, when they start reading, when they start writing, because they're going to know these words. They're going to feel comfortable with the words. But we have to start young, making it fun. Put on fun music, let them watch videos, do fun activities. Because if they start off young thinking, English is boring, I don't like it, that also is going to follow them on into the older grades.
Okay,
Yes.
Casey, thank you for
The advice.
the advice. And I want to share another question of the assistants. Mr. Jainer asked you, it's Christy, said that we can use incentive to help students take more interest in the class. So, if we do that, could it not work and instead of completely change of motivation to study English?
I think that motivation, obviously we would like to think that all students have intrinsic motivation, they're motivated by themselves, but that's usually not the case. We usually have to help them be motivated so that later on they realize, oh, I like this is fun. I think that as far as motivation goes, I think we have to work on individual motivation first, and then also encourage the classroom motivation. I think that again, for me personally, what I use with my younger students that works very well, I use a point system. So if they answer questions correctly, or they participate, or they pay attention in class, they earn points. And then at a certain time of the week, they get to turn those points in. I usually have like a little treasure box that has stickers or that has little small toys or pencils or erasers, and they get to trade in their points for a prize. I also like to incorporate something called brags, which is where at the end of my class, I always brag on 2 students, a male and a female. And I always say something like, I just want to brag on Juan Jose, because today Juan Jose was paying attention. He was speaking very fluently. He answered multiple questions. And I want us all to give Juan Jose applause today. Everybody in the classroom will clap for him and we'll celebrate his advances. And that's another way to encourage that secure atmosphere that we talked about earlier, where students feel safe and they feel like, okay, here is a place that I can make mistakes because we're supporting each other. So it doesn't always have to be things that you spend money on. It can. My kids love when I draw, even the older kids. I'll draw little silly drawings on their homework, or write funny messages on their homework. And all of those are easy, inexpensive ways to continue to encourage the motivation of our students. Once they realize I can do this, it's not impossible, and they notice that you're putting an effort to make your classes exciting, trust me, their motivation is going to improve.
Okay, thank you too much.
Thank you so much, Christy, and for all the information and the great knowledge that you gave to us again. It was such a pleasure, and I'm grateful for that. I think all of us, we're grateful for your information.
Thank you.
For the
Yes,
future
thank you.
as a teacher. Thank you for every single information that you gave us.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you so
time.
much for the opportunity. I wish you all the best. I know you guys are going to make great teachers one day.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye. So now we are going to introduce our next professor, and she is Katie Lucia Fornek, and she's from Brazil, and she's going to tell us about teaching reading comprehension and research didactics and tendencies. She is graduated in letters from the University of Vale do Taquari, Univates, 2002, master degree in letters 2006, and PhD in letters 2016 from the Pontifical Catholic University of Rio Grande do Sul. And she is currently a professor at the University of Vale do Taquari, Univates, where she works as a professor in the postgraduate program in teaching and the postgraduate program in letters. She's fellow researcher at LASPO Harvard and 2019 2021 through the SDEM Law School and Consortium. She has developed and guided research works that focus on inferential processes arising from reading and writing in digital environments. She is the co-author of collections of digital learning objects for reading comprehensions, all focusing on metacognition. So we are grateful of having her here in our university. And well, Miss Professor Fornek, Professor Fornek, you can continue, please. We are waiting for your speech.
Invitation. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here to share with you what I'm researching and what I'm studying right now. I will try to share my presentation, so please wait a moment. It's my first time in this platform.
Take your time.
Let me see. So much, please. It's okay. You're seeing?
Yes, we can see
Yes,
your
we can
presentation.
see.
Okay, so thank you. Well, my name is Kari Lúcia Fornek, and as you told before, I'm professor of the postgraduate program in teaching, and also I'm professor of the graduate program in language and literature. Here in Brazil, we call letras is our formation here. And I'm from Brazil, really, and from the south of Brazil. I work at the University of Vale do Taquari, Univates. And today I will share with you my lecture of teaching reading comprehension, some research, some didactics approach, and tendencies about we are studying right now. First, it's important to say who we are and where we are from. There is a research project, a macro project here we call Teaching from Childhood to Adulthood, Views of Teachers and Students. And this macro project embraces 6 other projects, and one of them is composed by the research group CLIC. And who we are, this is our group, coordinated by me, and also we have scholarship students, Carolina, Sofia, Larissa, and Erica. We have master's degree students, Roger, Leslie, Angie, and Tatiana. And we also have volunteers, Solano, Suzinara, and Giuliani. This group is working with different frames and different areas of language processes of teaching and learning languages. Right. Our research interest areas, we work with reading comprehension, we work with text production, and also we work with digital technologies that we believe embraces this both abilities and teaching practice at all. Our cornerstones is based on 3 fundamental, 3 theoretical frameworks. We work with reading comprehension, and we work with metacognition and reading, and also, as I said before, digital technologies. And those are the authors that we study in order to have the base or the concepts of this theoretical framework. And now I will speak something about each one. About reading comprehension. It's important to say to you that I'm not English professor. I'm not study bilingualism, for instance. I study how language works in our mind, independently which language we are talking about. So, about reading comprehension, it's important to say that what we understand while we are reading depends on our ability to make inferences. This is a great concept that we work with. And an inference is based on three different steps or levels, like the text information, the communicative situation, and the previous knowledge of the reader. So, in order to understand what we read, independently in which language, we need to get to understand what is the text information, what the text shows to us. We need to understand what is the concept beside the situation, the communicative situation. What are the speaker intentions? What are the text intentions? We need to understand these. And also we should have some previous knowledge about the content of the text. It's important to say this because the understanding, the inference producing is based on what we already know about we are reading on the text. And a model of reading that we are working with right now is based on the idea of Kinch and Hawson, and work with this kind of image here. It's important to read this image from the bottom from the top to the top. And on the bottom we have the level of the meanings of words that form propositions. We have what or how words are combined in the text, and how they form propositions of knowledge. Propositions, not knowledge, sorry. Propositions of meanings. This is the base level, the surface form. In another step, in another level, we have the text base. And the text base is composed by the proposition. It's a more abstract level. And these propositions form chains or units network that are made by the micro and the macro structure of the text. It's in a more abstract level. And in the third level, we have the situation model. And the situation model is the mental model of what is presented in the text. It's important to say that many linguistic approaches study the different levels. We have studies based on the surface form, we have studies based on the text base, and we have studies based on the situation model. We study what happens in our mind when we understand something we are reading or we are speaking also with each other. It's important to say this to you. Another framework it's important to us, that is important to us, is it's what happens in our brain. So we have what happens in our mind, the inferential process that that shows up when we read something. And also we have what happens in our brain, the network of reading, the cortical network of networks of reading. And this model was created by De Haen, and it's based on the idea of two ways of processing reading comprehension or processing language in general. We have in red the visual word form area. This particular area is responsible for the recognition of the letters, not numbers, only the letters. And we have in orange the area or the framework, the network responsible for the access to pronunciation and articulation. These neurons, the neurons that are that operate in this area, are responsible for our ability of recognize the relation between a letter and a sound. What is this relation? What kind of meaning this relation produce? And then we have in green the area responsible from the access to meaning, what the words mean when we understand or when we get the relation between letters and sounds. Then another group of neurons starts to work in order to produce the meaning of what we are reading. It's important to say about this something about the process of reading, comprehension. The access of the meaning, this root, this green root, occurs in a better way when we have fluency of reading, when we can read in a fast way. Because if we read in a slowly way, then the neurons of the orange space are more recruited, and then the meaning is difficult to access. So it happens in the first, the mother tongue, or in the second language. When we have fluency or velocity of reading, then it's easier to the neurons responsible for the meaning work, and then we understand the words better. Here we have another image that is a real image of fMRI machine, and we have here the fasciculus responsible for the connections of the different areas. In green, we have again the visual word form area, and in orange or yellow, we have the neurons responsible for the meaning process, and in blue, we have the neurons responsible for the access of the phonetical relation between letters and between sounds. I need to say to you that this study in particular discovered that good readers modify their neuronal network. It's interesting to say this because we believe that reading comprehension it's only a mental, a cognitive ability, but also transform our brain, because this fasciculus, or it's called also like as the white matter of the brain, this fasciculus it's improved. They are improved when we are good readers, and it's interesting to say that good readers they have fast neuronal connections, and neuronal connections faster improves the reader and the reading and so on. Another cornerstone is the idea of metacognition and reading comprehension. And what's important to say about this, it's that we have some ideas of what happens when we read something. Soler start with this idea, and Cato and Leff improve the idea. We have here what happens or what should happen when we read before the reading start, and what happened while we are reading, and what happens after reading finish. So I draw in different colors because I believe that what is black here, the items that are in black, mean or represent the idea of cognitive process, and what is in purple or blue doesn't matter. Represent a metacognitive process of reading. But what is the difference between cognitive and metacognitive process? A cognitive process is a kind of activity that we do automatically without thinking about it. And a metacognitive process is based on our consciousness. We need to be aware of what we are doing in order to understand what we are reading. So before reading, I will explain the list here. We need to ask questions about the content of the text. It's interesting the rule of the teachers in this process, because the teachers could make questions about the content of the text in order to students make predictions about the content of the text. This should be happen before the reading starts. See how the text is organized, and organize a script to read, considering reading objectives. This is important. Before reading, it's interesting to say to the students, or to say to the kids or the teenagers that why we are reading this text, so they can draw, or they can construct a script to read in order to considering reading of the objectives. Another ability is raise hypotheses about the content of the text, active previous knowledge about the content of the text. Also, we have here what kind of strategies occurs while we are reading. All of them is drawn in purple, so I believe all of them are metacognitive strategies, because this kind of strategies requires the awareness of the reader, and this is in another level of comprehension, of understanding the text. Stop reading to check understanding. Reread passages when there is difficulty in understanding. Go back a few paragraphs when there are distractions. Check whether the assumptions made about the content of the text are confirmed. Highlight text. It's interesting. You know, the yellow pen used in order to highlight information that you deem important to understand the text, and make notes beside the text. It's interesting to invite students to make notes about what they are reading on the text. So all of these kind of strategies, I believe they are in a metacognitive level, because in order to do this, we need to be awareness of the ability of reading. We need to be aware what we need to do in order to understand the text. And at the end, the Cato, Soler, Cato, and Leffa show us the strategies that happens after reading. So we have here, recall key points in the text to make sure you understand, write in your own words what was understood from the text, make a list of the most important topics in the text. Another one, confirm or refute predictions made about the text. Check if you reached the stipulated goal for reading the text, and summarize the text. I mark with red the three last one because I believe that make critical comments and give an opinion about the text or interpret what the author meant. It's not in a understanding level. It's not in a inference level. It's in another level, because here the students need to express their own opinion, not only the informations that informations that are on the text. I don't know what happens in Colombia, but in Brazil, we have a kind of, how can I say this, a kind of practice that we allow the students to make critical comments, or they give their opinion, even if they didn't understand the text. And I believe that this is not a good idea, because we can make more comments, or we can build our opinion about the text only after we understand the text, or we understood the text, not before it, and or not without understanding the text. And here we have some school practice that embraces this possibility, and I'm not agreed with them. And about digital technologies, is important to say something. We believe now, especially because of the pandemic situation that we are living in, we believe on this concept of on-life education. What is on-life education? Is the idea of being against the dualism between offline and online. So we understand, or we believe, that our classes or our students should be connected during the class, because they are connected outside the schools. So why don't permit the connections inside the class? And it's important to say this because some schools forbid the use of cell phones, for instance, in the classes. And we are now trying to understand the idea of a huge how can I say, a huge network of connecting people. And we also believe that digital learning objects that also we built in our group could help the teaching processes. And also the another framework here is teaching, or it's important to teach to training teachers for the use of technologies, because if the teachers are not prepared, it's impossible to make some technology approach in the classes. Now I will present to you some studies that we developed here at Univates. Here we have 4 projects that we are developing, and all of them is based on the idea of learning or teaching reading comprehension, or teaching writing with the use of technology. And it's important to say also that we create our material, our digital material. And now I will present to you some of these materials that we created. Our digital objects are, digital learning objects are hosted on this site. So if you want to see them, it's only connect. So you should connect. All of our material is based on the idea of reading comprehension, of inference, as I told you, and also they were built in a metacognitive level. So we draw the kind of instructive feedback of the process of reading. Here we have an example of the first collection. We now we have 2 collections, and one the third one it's on processing of building, of creating. As you can see, is written in Portuguese because we work with Portuguese and not in English, but we are working on the idea of reading comprehension in all situations, not only in a second language acquisition. Here we have an example of a text and a question that students should answer. And here we have another one. And this is the example of the feedback. So the feedback appears when students end the activity, and the feedback, as I said before, we work with metacognitive level of understanding. The feedback shows to the student what he or she did in order to get right, or what she or he should do in order to go right. If they choose the wrong answer, the feedback shows the way in order to go to the right answer. So again, we are trying to bring to highlight the aware or the consciousness of what students should do in order to understand what they are trying to understand. So one thing, I need to say something more. As you can see, this kind of material is a simple material. We don't have many designers to make more a kind of material more in a complex way. This was the first collection that we create. So it's as you can see, simple. It's not so beautiful. The second collection it's better, as you can see. This is a kind of example of the second collection. Here we have again an activity of reading comprehension, and also we have here the feedback, the positive feedback. What's as you can see here, the feedback shows what students made in order to understand or in order to go right. And here we have another example of activity. Students need to put order put the text in order. And here we have an example of instructive feedback that shows to the students what the students need to do in order to choose the right answer. And this is a third one, digital material that we are designing. And this one is based on another idea. So we have the idea of metacognitive level, of metacognitive abilities of comprehension. And now also we have the idea of multimodality. What happens when students in the screen read text with multimodality frameworks. Here we have a screenshot, an example of the view of the screen. Here another example of the activity. And here we have I don't know how to say this in English, the group that were responsible for the creation of this kind of digital learning object. So as you can see, the first group of activities were simple. The second one, we improved the design of the interface design. And this one, it's better because we improve also the multimodality of experience of reading inside the activity. So what have we already discovered in our research? We discovered that metacognitive reading strategies are important to improve the ability of reading comprehension. The awareness about the reading comprehension is a predictor of the quality of the reader and the quality of the reading also. So we also discovered that students like to interact with digital learning objects. It's important to say that the beauty of the material is important because the second collection were better evaluated from the students. And then also we are trying to be more careful about this. So students like, again, I say students like very much to interact with material, with digital material. They enjoy the experience, and they join to be learned, they enjoy the experience of learning metacognitive process of reading comprehension. Also, we have another study about metacognitive in reading comprehension. And now the last one, in letter D, we record the movement of the mouse while students were clicking on the activities. And we discovered that if they don't have clear objectives of reading, the students don't read all of the text. They just read what they need to read to answer the question. So have clear objectives of reading it's necessary to improve the reading abilities. And another study, it's about the effects of multimodality in learning reading comprehension and also in teaching reading comprehension. This study was conducted with higher education students. And some discussions about this kind of ideas. Now, we know, as a research group, we know that reading awareness or metacognition results in better performance in comprehension activities. To develop metacognitive reading strategies is to qualify the teaching of comprehension. So, a great idea as teachers is to clarify what the students need to do to improve their reading comprehension. They don't learn reading comprehension automatically. They need to be taught. Also, students showed great interest in handling with the digital learning object. They enjoy use technology to read, to comprehend, to play with the meaning of the words. For them, learning by interacting with digital material contributes to their learning. And also we discovered that there are no great differences between reading in a paper or reading on the screen, because the brain works in the same way. The brain, more or less, there are some differences, but not great differences between reading on the screen or reading on the paper. I think the great difference is on the idea of distraction. So this is why we are studying multimodality in order to respond this question. We don't have many answers. The quality of the didactic material is a predictor of interest in learning. Aspects of the interface design contributed to the qualification of the relationship between students and digital didactic materials. So they enjoy the material that it's more beautiful. In schools or in school contexts, students tend to read to accomplish a task and only that. So we need to think about what kind of tasks we are asking to the students. Evidences indicate that students read in leaps. They skip parts just to satisfy the reading goal. Therefore, if this objective is not clear enough, the task may be compromised. So teachers, be aware about what are you asking to the students in reading comprehension activities. And readers who control the interaction, this is about multimodality now, okay, with multimodality content, tend to enhance their understanding and perform tasks better, such as summarizing. Or if they can control their own process of reading comprehension, then they have better results. As summarizing it's a study that we are developing right now. We don't have still great results, but some of preliminary results are showing to us that students who interact with multimodality in a controlled way, they went better in summarizing activities of reading comprehension. And the future in focus, what we are trying to do in the future. Some questions about our research group, from our research group. What are the effects of multimodality on reading comprehension is one question. How paraphrase production activities can improve foreign language reading performance. It's another study developed by a student of mine. She's trying to create material, didactic material, in order to teach the paraphrase as an activity to improve reading comprehension in English. So, another question. How can digital technologies qualify reading and writing learning in post-pandemic education context? Because we don't have this answer right now. And we know the classes and the students and the teachers, everything is different now. And we need to study about this. And the last one, how can the continuing education of teachers qualify reading and writing teaching practices in digital environments? This is what we are trying to understand right now, and we are creating a pedagogical approach to teach reading comprehension, another pedagogical approach, reading comprehension, and also about writing in digital environments. And I think this is it. Some references of only some of them, what I said. And thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to share with you what we are doing here at Univats. Thank you again.
Can we talk? Ya puedo hablar. Thanks, Professor Fornick. We are grateful for having you here. And we have a question. And well, you were talking about metacognition. And could you explain us what metacognition is? Because maybe that's a new word for many of us, and we would like to know about it.
Right. Metacognition is a psychologically concept because it's not a pedagogical framework. Now we are, as professors, as teachers, we are using this framework in order to improve our teaching methodologies because this idea is very interesting. So we have cognition abilities and cognitive abilities and metacognitive abilities. The cognitive abilities is based on the idea that we do something automatically. You, for instance, use the fork and the knife to eat. We need to learn these in a level. And this kind of learning is automatically. We don't think about this. We don't think about how to use the fork and the knife. We don't think about this. This is a kind of cognitive ability and also motor ability. But in schools, this kind of activity don't require the awareness of the students. They do automatically. Another kind of ability is the metacognitive ability. It's not in another level. So always, as a teacher, we need to I forgot the word in English, to chamar a atenção, to pay attention. The students need to pay attention on what they are doing when they are learning something. So some examples. I told you before about the yellow pen that we use to mark the text. How students can learn part of the text they should highlight. If we don't teach them, they don't know. So we need to teach them because they need to be aware what they are doing. The rule of the teacher is to teach the students to be consciousness, to be aware of what they are doing while they are learning. Summarize a text, it's a metacognitive ability. So because the students need to think about what they do in order to understand. So they think about the process of thinking. This is a metacognitive ability, different than a cognitive ability that we do automatically. I don't know if I answer your question.
Professor Fornick.
Thanks for your answer.
We have another question. And could you give us an advice about how to get a good comprehension while reading?
How to get the comprehension?
A good comprehension while reading, yes.
So the comprehension is based on our ability to recognize the text. So we need to understand the words, and we need to understand the content of the text, and also we need to have some previous knowledge about the content of the text. So as teachers, it's not a good idea to bring to the students text that it's so distant, that have content distant to the reality of the students. It's important to work with text that students could be able to understand, not in a difficult level. And another point important is that as teachers we need to do good questions about the text. So the kind of questions like what is the title of the text, how many lines the text have, or the worst question for me is, what do you think about the text? Before understand the text, first we need to discuss the text, the first part, the second part, the third part, and so on and so on. We need to understand what is implicit, what is explicit, and what is implicit. And our rule as teachers is to show this process of understanding to the students. We need to teach them to pay attention of this, and not only make questions about their opinion. I'm not against opinions. It's important to say this. I'm not against opinions. Opinions are very, very important. It's necessary to build opinions. But as a researcher, I'm studying what happens before having opinions, because the opinions, it's made by comprehension, and it's important to teach the comprehension before having before extrapolating the text. I believe in this.
Yes, thanks for your advice. And well, you know that when we were school teachers, teachers used to tell us that learning how to read is learning how to write it. So I would like to ask you, what's your opinion about it? Do you think that learning how to read is learning how to write?
In part, yes. In part, no. Why I'm saying this? Because reading, it's a kind of ability. Writing, it's another ability. Of course, good readers they write better, of course, but in order to teach writing abilities, we need to teach right. What I'm trying to say that reading abilities influence positively the ability of writing, of course, but it's not enough. If you want to teach writing, you need to teach this kind of abilities of organize a text. Of course, it's based on we are better writers when we read a lot. Of course. But there are some different abilities that we need to teach as teachers in our classrooms.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you so much, Mr. Christie, Miss Christie. Well, I got a question. Cari. I'm sorry, Cari.
No problem.
I got a question. What has been your best experience during these years of teaching?
Wow, great question. Great question. I think my best experience was to see my students becoming researchers. I believe, as you, as teachers information, we become better teachers when we research about our teaching practices. So being studying, continue, keep studying, and I think this will be a great idea because you will improve your understanding of teaching, understanding of learning. This is important. I think my best experience is based on this idea. Sorry about
Don't worry.
Sorry. They're mixing some chairs above. The best experience is when my students become researchers of their own practices, of their own teaching practices.
Nice to know that. Thanks.
Okay, I got a question of the participants of the
From the comments.
for the comments. And I got here. What is the better form of practice vocabulary?
Sorry, can you repeat?
What is the better way to practice vocabulary?
To practice what? Sorry.
What's the best way to practice vocabulary?
Okay. Showing vocabulary to the students. The experience of improved vocabulary only could be improved by using different vocabulary. This is the base rule. You need to show students different words, different level of text that they have. Some text has a deeper vocabulary, so it's important to show the students this kind of vocabulary. And I think the more practice of vocabulary improves the vocabulary at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Fornick. We are grateful for having you here. So thanks for all the advice.
All the information.
Yes.
We're so grateful for that.
For sharing your knowledge.
For knowledge to us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Thanks to you. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, we're going to introduce another researcher. She's an amazing woman. Makeli Aldrovani is a professor of language and literature program at University of Vale do Taquari, Univantes in Brazil. She has a master and doctorate degrees in linguistics. Her research interests are reading and enunciation, teaching, and additional language. So please, Makeli, it's going to be a pleasure to hear you.
Hello. Hello. First, I have to say that I'm very happy to be here sharing with you. And I want to thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to share any moments of learning with people, especially from another country. That's my first experience, my first international experience. So I'm very glad to be spending this time with you guys. I'm just going to share my screen with you and see if it works. Just a minute. All right, great. So you can see my presentation now. To begin, the title of my presentation is Reading Strategies in Use, How to Read Texts in English. So I am Professor Makeli Aldrovandi. I am a professor, as you already said, at University of Vale do Taquari, Univates. Of Professor Kari, who just spoke. We work together. She is an amazing colleague and an amazing researcher. So it's a great responsibility to be talking after her. And she was asked a question about how to get a good comprehension in texts. And I was very happy for hearing that question and her answer, of course, because I think that my presentation may help you with that. Okay, so to begin, this is the presentation outline. I'm going to be talking a little bit about reading in English as a foreign language, or English as a second language, or English as an additional language. Today, I'm not going to enter in details about the differences between these three concepts, but they make a very big difference in the way we teach. So if you're ever interested in talking or discussing any of these concepts, you can ask me questions later and I'll answer with my pleasure. Or we can discuss in a new opportunity, okay? So this is the first thing I'm going to be talking about. And in the second moment of my talk, I'll be talking about reading strategies, what they are and how they work. So I think this second part may help you understand a little bit on how to get a good comprehension of texts, especially in a second foreign or additional language. It can be applied to your mother tongue as well, because reading strategies are they are used for that too. But my view today is especially in English, okay, as a language that you are learning, not your mother tongue. Before I begin, I would like to say also that everything that I'm going to present today is something that I've been using with my own students here. As Professor Kari, I am a professor of the Language and Literature program here at Univates. And one of the courses that I teach almost every semester is called English 1, Reading and Text Production. And this course is taken by several students from different programs. So not only language and literature programs, but students from engineering, from pharmacy, I don't know, all programs here of Univates, because they have to have a proficiency in English. And when they don't pass proficiency tests, they come to take this course as an equivalent for that test, okay? And having this as my background, I'm always concerned with how students can get the gist of a text, even though they don't have the vocabulary or the other skills to understand the whole text from top to bottom, like every word. Okay, so reading strategies that I'll present to you today are reading strategies that I teach my students here at Univates. So I'm talking about higher education, but they can perfectly be applied to your future students when you're teachers of English to basic education, to elementary school students and high school students as well. Okay. One thing that is very important to say also before I begin, I'm talking a lot before I begin, is that these reading strategies are reading comprehension strategies. Okay, so they'll help students understand the text better, as I said, and the goal or the big of using reading strategies is not to make our students understand the whole text. It will help them understand the text to a level that is enough for them at the moment. Why am I saying that? My students of English 1, that is the course that I use these reading strategies a lot in, are usually scared
You listening to us? You listen to us? Okay. While we're returning with the conference, appreciate your comments below, so you can hear reading your questions, and we're going to return as soon as possible, and we are going to share some of the comments that you are already sent to the chat.
Hello.
She's here again. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes,
When did you stop listening to me?
Yes, I can see your presentation.
Yeah?
You
What
can
did
hear
you
me.
listen? Did you listen anything that I said?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
We can listen.
Yes, it was just
Before.
2 minutes. Only 2 minutes.
Okay. So I was probably talking about when I use these reading strategies, is it?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. So let me see if I remember what I was saying 2 minutes ago. I'll begin my presentation, and then if you have any questions, you can ask me later, okay?
Okay.
Okay. And if anything happens, you please tell me, okay? Moving on. So I'll begin with reading strategies in English as a foreign language, is English as a second language, or English as an additional language. As I said before, now I'm not going to get into details about that, but if you want to ask me questions later, it's okay. So first of all, why should we learn reading in a new language? Why can't I just learn how to speak? Lots of students, especially from private courses, private language courses, they come and they ask, can I just talk? Like, I would like to learn how to speak English. I don't want to learn grammar, or I don't want to learn anything else. I just want to learn how to speak. Well, there are reasons why we should learn all the skills, and today I'm focusing on reading, of course. And some of the reasons are reading is
Okay.
Back?
Can you?
I don't know what's happening.
We can't hear you. Could you repeat what you said?
Just give me a minute. I think my connection is having an issue. Just give me a minute.
Okay. Okay. The Miss Makeli and Robali, as I said before, she's a grade-less teacher of language and literature. So you can comment about how can increase your ability to say English, how can you think more in English, because we having some issues mixing the Spanish and English. This is an issue that we need to unite, we need to be clean. And I don't know, you can comment of her, ask her, how can we increase those abilities in order to increase our English skills.
You can put in the comments all your questions. So we're going to, we will be reading. So
we will be reading all the comments that you already sent below the comments. And I don't know, you must be encouraged for all of this seminar. We're going to learn an experience that we already don't have.
Hi.
Hi.
oh, hi.
I'm having a problem with my connection, so I changed places. I'm really sorry.
No worries.
Don't worry
Don't
about
worry
it.
about it. It's okay.
I think it should work now. I'm closer to my router. Okay, I'll begin again. I'm sorry. So I'll begin again from the beginning of this slide, all right? So I was saying, why should we learn reading and language? Some students, as I said, come especially to private courses, and they ask that they say that they would like to learn only speaking. They wouldn't like to learn any other skills. So I'm a big fan of working with all skills because I don't think you can learn a language completely just by learning one of the skills. So today I'm focusing on learning how to read, but all skills should be taken into account, okay? So the first reason why we should learn reading in a new language is because reading is one of the main sources of input for learners of a language. That means because of reading, I can learn vocabulary, I can learn grammar, I can learn how texts work in a different language.
Okay, we'll have...
Bueno, mientras vuelve...
Mientras ella vuelve, pueden escribir sus comentarios. Ella es una experta en el, aprendizaje de lecto-escritura.
También recuerden pues llenar el formulario para
la asistencia. Entonces, esa asistencia se le va a reflejar a la profesora. Mientras tanto, puede ir comentando las preguntas que tengan en ella. Ella es una magíster. Entonces, todas estas preguntas que de pronto tengan, ella se las estará respondiendo cuando termine su presentación. ¿Ok?
Dejen sus comentarios, chicos, por favor, sus preguntas, sus agradecimientos, cualquier duda que tengan para hacérselo saber a la profesora ponente. Por favor, ella tiene un problema con la conexión, pero ya estará con nosotros en un momento.
Exacto.
Cuando pienso en los talentos de las personas, pienso que los talentos son los que pueden construir nuestra leyenda personal. ¿Te has preguntado cómo puedo transformar mi historia de vida? Si tienes un talento para cambiar tu historia, nosotros te ayudamos a evolucionar. Tu leyenda personal está en una educación sin límites.
Hola, soy Estefanía Cárdenas.
Y yo, Moisés Perales.
Y somos parte de la Corporación Universitaria Americana.
Te invitamos a que conozcas sobre esa gran familia que durante años ha venido trabajando en servicios de educación.
En la Americana contamos con programas de pregrado presencial, pregrado virtual, posgrados y educación continuada.
Actualmente estamos ofreciendo un subsidio solidario por toda tu carrera y además nuestras inscripciones son gratis.
Aprovecha los subsidios solidarios y comienza a construir tus sueños.
Elige una educación sin límites.
Elige la familia americana.
Cuando pienso en los talentos de las personas, pienso que los talentos son los que pueden construir nuestra leyenda personal. ¿Te has preguntado cómo puedo transformar mi historia de vida? Si tienes un talento para cambiar tu historia, nosotros te ayudamos a evolucionarla. Tu leyenda personal está en una educación sin límites.
Hola, soy Estefanía Cárdenas.
Y yo, Moisés Perales.
Y somos parte de la Corporación Universitaria
Te
Americana.
invitamos a que conozcas sobre esta gran familia que durante años ha venido trabajando en servicios de educación.
En la Americana contamos con programas de pregrado presencial, pregrado virtual, posgrados y educación continuada.
Actualmente estamos ofreciendo un subsidio solidario por toda tu carrera y además nuestras inscripciones son gratis.
Aprovecha los subsidios solidarios y comienza a construir tus sueños.
Elige una educación sin límites.
Elige
la familia americana.
Yo decidí regresar porque estoy lista para seguir construyendo mi futuro en mi institución.
Yo volví a reencontrarme de forma segura con los docentes y los estudiantes.
Tú también puedes elegir tomar tus clases de forma segura.
Porque los sueños no se detienen en la americana. ¡Anímate!
Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I don't know what's happening to my connection. It's never been this bad.
Can you hear?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. For the last time, I think I'm going to begin this slide, and I hope it works out just fine now. Okay. So, as I was trying to say when I was interrupted by my connection for the 100th time, reading is one of the main sources of input. That means we learn a lot of language by reading. We learn vocabulary, we learn grammar, we learn
Oh my God, we're in trouble. Guys are away.
We're having bad connection, guys.
Sorry.
We're so sorry.
So, Susana, how...
¿Cómo se han sentido, muchachos, en este seminario?
Dejen sus comentarios abajo, cómo se han sentido.
También.
Aprovechemos estas interrupciones para poder hablar de lo que hemos aprendido.
¿Qué han aprendido? Pueden contarnos. ¿Qué preguntas tienen? ¿Qué más quieren saber?
Como había dicho la señorita, la McKelly, pues el aprendizaje es muy importante por medio de escuchar, leer. O sea, necesitamos todos esos componentes para poder tener un inglés avanzado.
Esa comprensión, ¿no?
Esa comprensión, exactamente. O sea, nosotros tenemos que utilizar todas esas herramientas para poder incrementar nuestra comprensión en la segunda lengua, que viene siendo el inglés. ¿Alguno de sus comentarios es en dónde está el formulario de alternancia?
De asistencia.
Asistencia, I'm sorry.
La profesora Roselis lo
va a estar reenviando.
Lo va a estar reenviando.
Ya justamente lo está reenviando, ya lo reenvió, ¿ya lo tienes?
Hi.
Eso es muy importante.
Hello, guys. I'm gonna
Don't worry about it.
No, I don't know what the problem is. It never happens. It never happens. I'm gonna ask you if you could share my presentation because I think that might be the problem.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Of course. Okay. I think that has been the problem because when I start talking, it disappears. My connection goes away.
Okay, so no worries. We're going to share your presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Give us like almost 2 minutes, I don't know. And we're going to present your
slices.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So wait a minute, please.
Sure. I have been teaching online for a year and a half now, and I was never without connection. I don't know what's happening. I think it's because of my presentation. Because it says here somewhere that it can affect the connection.
These things happen, so it's okay. Don't worry about it.
I'm really sorry.
But you can hear.
Yes, I can hear you fine. I can see you fine. Yeah.
Okay, and what kind of the opposite
Slides.
Slides, were you?
What kind? Oh, you mean?
What kind of, what slide were you in your presentation?
What slide? The third.
The third.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, it's the third.
Okay. Could you see your presentation?
It's opening up. Yes, I can. Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Actually, it's the fourth.
Fourth.
Yes,
Okay.
here. Go back one, please. Yes. There you are. So I'm going to be moving to the second topic already. Also, another reason why we should learn reading in a new language is because we read for several reasons in our mother language already, and we should be able to do the same thing in the language that we learn. We read for pleasure. We read to find information for different reasons. In Portuguese, in my case, in Spanish, in your case, and we should be able to do that in English as well. Also, another reason is because reading helps fix the language in our minds. That means by reading, we will be able to memorize with bigger ease the vocabulary, the grammar structures, punctuation, syntax, and everything that is related to language. And also, because reading provides a good model for writing. That means the more I read, the better I write. In terms of language, of course, so vocabulary and grammar, as I said before, and also in terms of textual genres, because I can only know how to write a text, let's say an essay, if I had access to essays. I will only be able to write an article if I have had access to articles. Okay, next slide, please. Can you move on to the next slide? Thank you. Now about reading strategies. Using reading comprehension strategies, this is what I'm talking about, helps learner get prepared to read and interpret texts. So by teaching them how to use reading strategies, they will learn how to, they will get to the text more prepared to understanding it, and they will be able to understand or interpret texts more easily. Also, according to some studies, there is a correlation between high proficiency students and high frequency use of reading strategies. So the more you use reading strategies, the better you read. Okay, next. One problem that we as teachers, and I see that in my classes all the time, is that learners tend not to use the same reading strategies that they use in their mother tongue when they are learning a new language. What do students usually do? They tend to try and understand every word in the text. Can you still hear me? Yeah. They tend to try and read and understand every word in a text instead of understanding the text as a whole. Okay, go back one slide, please.
Cuando pienso en los talentos de las personas, pienso que los talentos son los que pueden construir nuestra leyenda personal. ¿Te has preguntado cómo puedo transformar mi historia de vida? Si tienes un talento para cambiar tu historia, nosotros te ayudamos a evolucionarla. Tu leyenda personal está en una educación sin límites.
Hola, soy Estefanía Cárdenas.
Y yo, Moisés Perales.
Y somos parte de la Corporación Universitaria Americana.
Te invitamos a que conozcas sobre esta gran familia que durante años ha venido trabajando en servicios de educación.
En la Americana contamos con programas de pregrado presencial, pregrado virtual, posgrados y educación continuada.
Actualmente estamos ofreciendo un subsidio solidario por toda tu carrera y además nuestras inscripciones son gratis.
Aprovecha los subsidios solidarios y comienza a construir tus sueños.
Elige una educación sin límites.
Elige la familia americana.
Hey guys.
Guys, we have a lot of problems, connections. We are going to return as soon as possible, and I remember you to full in the assistance.
La asistencia, por favor.
La profesora va a estar revisando la asistencia. Por favor, vayan llenando esa información para que ustedes aparezcan ya registrados que estuvieron en el evento.
Y lamentamos nuevamente a las conexiones.
Ya que, bueno, estamos presentando desde otros países, entonces la conexión puede
que esté un poco
exactamente, mala. Un poco mala. Nosotros estamos en un país que de pronto la conexión es muy buena y de pronto la conexión hasta acá, pues, se cae.
Exactamente.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm using my telephone now. I just gave up on my computer.
Okay. Go ahead.
And
Go back a few slides, please.
Miss, could you turn off your computer? Maybe it's better for the connection.
To slide number 6. Can you listen to me?
Yes?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Hello? I can't listen to you guys. Hello, can you listen to me?
Yes.
Yes.
Just a minute.
Yes.
Cuando pienso en los talentos de las personas, pienso que los talentos son los que pueden construir nuestra leyenda personal. ¿Te has preguntado cómo puedo transformar mi historia de vida? Si tienes un talento para cambiar tu historia, nosotros te ayudamos a evolucionarla. Tu leyenda personal está en una educación sin límites.
Hi again.
Hi again, Miss. Could you
I can't
turn
listen
off?
to you. I can't listen to anything you say. I was listening to the video, but I can't listen to you.
Okay. Could you turn off?
You can
your
listen to me,
computer?
okay? Can I begin? Yeah? Okay, can you put on my slides, please? Slide number 6.
That one.
Go back to slide number 6.
Number 6.
Number 6. Slide.
What is the number 6?
Go back.
Before?
You're moving forward. No, you're moving forward. Go back to slide number 6. One more.
One more.
One more, Miss.
One more.
One more.
Otra más.
Hacia atrás.
Ah, ok. Aquí ya le aparece.
One more. Go back one more, please. Yes, so I was talking about learners that don't use reading strategies from their mother tongue to when they're learning a language. So they should do that because some students of stopping at every word that they don't know to look them up at the dictionary. This slows down their comprehension. This almost makes it impossible for them to understand a text. Okay, so it doesn't work. Also, these are the reasons why reading strategies should be taught and should be learned in school. You can go to the next slide, please. To the next slide. The next slide is going to talk about reading strategies, what they are, what are they, and how do they work. Next. So today I brought to you a few reading strategies: textual genre, cognates, skimming, scanning, and nonverbal information. Next, please. These are the reading strategies that I work with my students. And before, you can work with your students of basic education, elementary school, and high school as well. And you can use for your own learning of English if you're interested in continue learning English, of course. So the first reading strategy that I teach has to do with textual genre. So textual genres are types of texts that are recognized by a community. That means we all know that a recipe is a recipe. We all know that a newspaper article is a newspaper article. We all recognize this as types of texts. These are called textual genres, okay? They have specific characteristics in their organization, layout, grammar structure, and specific vocabulary. Okay, so that's what makes them a textual genre. When we recognize a textual genre, we recognize their characteristics. Okay. Why do I teach a textual genre as reading strategy? Because when we are able to recognize a textual genre, we are better able to comprehend the text, because when I know that an invitation is an invitation, it's easier for me to find the information that I am looking for. And also, and I would say the main reason why teaching textual genres is one of the best reading strategies, that's why I brought it, it's because different textual genres will pose different reading objectives. That means I will never read an invitation, let's say, in the same way that I read an article. And when I understand the differences, I will force myself to see these texts as being different, and I will understand that reading them demands different strategies. Okay, so knowing a textual genre will help me understand the text better. Next slide, please. So here I have a comic strip of Garfield. Everyone knows it. Next, please. And this is a wiki entry of Wikipedia. It's about the Garfield show. Okay, so I have two very different textual genres about the same theme, that is Garfield, the so beloved cat. Next. These are a few questions that I tend to ask my students when working with textual genre. So the first question is, observe the two previous texts and name their genres. Of course, students, especially in elementary school, might not be able to name the genre specifically, the correct name, but they will be able to recognize them by some of its characteristics. What has helped you identify their genre? This is key, because when they're able to see that the layout, the vocabulary, the structure in general is what helps us identify the genre, they'll become aware of that and repeat this strategy in future texts. And the third question, based on your previous readings of those genera, what do you expect to see in those types of texts? So these are questions that I usually ask my students when I talk to them about textual genre. Of course, I always ask them also the objective of that text, because it's about the textual genre is about that too. Who the interlocutor is, that means for whom the text was written, and all these characteristics will help them identify the textual genre and consequently see their characteristics, and as a result, understand the text better. Next slide, please. So here are the answers that I would expect my students to give when answering those questions. So the first, the genres would be a comic strip and a wiki entry. What helped us identify the textual genre is the layout, the language, the images, and based on our previous readings, characteristics of this genre are the comic strip humor, images, and dialogues, and the wiki entry information and facts about a theme. So when students are able to get to these answers, they're able to understand the text better. So this is one reading strategy. Next slide. Thank you. This is very important, cognates. We tend to think that English and Portuguese or English and Spanish, I'm specifically talking about Portuguese because my knowledge of Spanish is very small. So we tend to think that English and Portuguese are totally different languages. There is nothing that we can compare between the two. And actually, that's a big fat lie, because Portuguese and English, as well as Spanish and English, share some similarity in terms of vocabulary. It happens because Portuguese and Spanish are Latin languages, and a lot of the English vocabulary comes from Latin as well. So we have these words that look similar in Portuguese and English, in Spanish and English, and they share the same meaning. When we have these words that look the same and mean the same, they're called cognates. I brought the example here of problem in English and problema in Portuguese. You see, they look very similar and they share the same meaning. This is a cognate, okay? We just need to pay attention to what we call false cognates, because sometimes we have words that look similar, but they don't share the same meaning. Those are false cognates. I have here the example of push, that looks like puxar in Portuguese, but it doesn't mean puxar. It means empurrar, okay? So we need to make our students aware of that too. But if we have false cognates, why should we teach them that knowing cognates is a good reading strategy? Because, well, the number of cognate words between between Portuguese and English is much bigger than the number of false cognates. And when students become aware of that, they get surprised of how many words they know in a text. So that problem that I said before, that the students will stop at every word that they don't know to look this word up in the dictionary, they will not have anymore, because they will know many of the words of a text. So this will help them get more confidence when reading, because they will know that that text is going to have some words that they will already know. Okay, next slide, please. So this is a piece of news that I took a screen print from. You can go to the next. And these are some of the activities that I use with my students to work with cognate words. So the first one would be highlight the words that look similar in Portuguese and English. So they would go to that text that I would give them and highlight somehow, the way that they feel better, all the words that are similar in Portuguese and English. Then they would look, that's the second question now, look them up in the dictionary and decide whether they're cognates or not, and fill in the table. So they will look at the words that look similar, and the dictionary is going to help them decide whether they are cognates or not. If you move on to the next slide, please. I highlighted in yellow the words that look similar between Portuguese and English. So university, future, students, evidence, member, minority, recent. These are just some, okay? This is what my students would do. And the next, they would include these words, university, students, and evidence, in the table and decide whether they're cognate or false cognate. So all these words are cognates. That means university means universidade in Portuguese, students means estudantes, and evidence means evidência. That is the meaning that is beside in the third column of the table. So learning cognates will help them understand the text better because it will give them the confidence to know that they know a lot of vocabulary. Okay, the next reading comprehension strategy is skimming. Skimming through a text means to observe this text quickly without paying attention to details. So it's when you're browsing the newspaper in the morning while you're having your coffee, for example, and you don't stop at every text. You just look at the headlines, you look at the images. You even may take a look at the first sentences in a few of the texts of this newspaper. That is skimming. You just glance through a text. Okay, so to skim, as I said, in the second part of the presentation, you glance through titles, headings, non-verbal information, that is images, tables, so on, numbers, first lines of a few paragraphs, and etc. By doing this skimming thing, we are able to get the general idea of a text. That means we will know what the text is about. If someone asks me, what is this news about? I will be able to answer just because I looked at the headline and at a few words of the text. In our daily lives, in me as a speaker of Portuguese, you as speakers of Spanish, we do skimming a lot. Newspapers, in social media, and lots of other examples. Figure yourself or picture yourself looking through Instagram or Facebook. You don't stop and read every publication, but you just glance, okay? This is a skimming strategy. So we do that all the time to get the general idea of something, of a text. Next slide, please. This is a print screen of an email. Next. And this is a question that I would ask my students if I were working with that email. So observe the text on the previous page, the one that I showed you just now. Analyze its layout, heading, cognates, and the first few words of each line. What is the text about? You see that with this question, I'm not asking my students to read through the whole text. They don't have to know every word. They don't have to pay attention to detail. They have to look at how the text is organized, check the heading, check a few words, and then they will be able to say, oh, I think this text is about this, this, and that because of this general organization. If you go to the next slide, we'll have the answer. So it's an email that is presenting a resume for a job opening. If you move on to the next slide, here you will see why I gave this as an answer. Because I have dear sir or ma'am as a heading. We usually start emails with that, or letters too, but we'll come to the difference between letters and emails in a few minutes. So reading the first sentence, I have the expression applying for the job. Okay, when I apply for the job, I usually send a resume or something. Then a few lines later, I have the word my resume. So I just checked and I saw it. And then going down, I have an email address as the last thing appearing in this text. So it's an email written to someone with the objective of applying for a job. Okay, so skimming is this. You look through a text and you are able to understand the whole idea of it. The general idea, not in specifics. Okay, the next slide, please. Another reading strategy that is very useful and we use a lot, me as a Portuguese speaker in our daily lives, is scanning. So while in skimming, we glance through a text without looking for specifics, we just want to know the whole idea of it. While we scan through a text to look at it very quickly again, but to look for specific information, to look for a detail, to look for something that is not general, but very specific, okay? And we will do that, we will glance through the text until we find this piece of information that we want. We do that in our daily lives very much. While for example, when I receive an invitation to anything, that we're not receiving many invitations now, especially because of the pandemic, I always look at the date first. So I will look at the location and everything later, but the first thing that I look at is the date. So when I do that, when I scan a text to look for the date, I am actually scanning a text. I'm using the scanning strategy. We don't do that very much anymore, but if we still did, phone books, we would do that to look for phone numbers, or maybe you can do that when in your phone book in your cell phone, you just scroll until you find the number, the name of the person that you want. Okay, so scanning is glancing through to look for specific information. If you move to the next slide, please. Thank you. I have a print screen. This would work as my text in my class, in my English language class. Next. And those are the questions that I would ask my students about that text to practice the scanning strategy. So I would ask them to find the information below in that text. The first information I would ask them to find the type of media that text is about, of course, the genres this text covers, and who the actors are. If you pass the slide, thank you. So the previous one with the answers, I'm sorry. Thank you. So the type of media it is a TV series. The genres it covers is action, adventure, and fantasy. And the actors are Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and Gugu Mbatha-Raw. I really don't know how to read that name. Go back one slide to the screen print, please. To the image. Yes, there. So by looking at this very quickly, the students are able to locate under the name Loki. They will find TV series. And down there, those are ellipses, I guess. We have action, adventure, and fantasy. And the last line, we have the stars. Those are the actors. So you see that I'm not asking my students to read every detail of this text. I'm just asking them to find information. And particularly when I look at this site, IMDb, to look for, I don't know, information on a TV series or a movie that I'm interested in watching, this is what I will do. I'll check the genre that the movie is or that series is, and I'll check who the stars are, and especially a little bit of the summary of the movie or TV series. Okay, you can go on now to the next reading strategy. That's it. Nonverbal information. When I'm talking about nonverbal information, I'm talking about all types of information that is given by other means that are not words. That is tables, graphs, images, everything that is not words and are present in a text. Most of the nonverbal information that accompanies a text has the objective of complementing this text and helping the reader understand what that text is about. Some of them, of course, give extra information, but some of them are essential information. If you move on to the next slide, please, I present to you a graph, and this would be a text that I would work with my students of the English language, especially one. So the world's most used social platforms. This is a text that I would work with them. Next slide. You will find some of the questions that I would ask them about that text. So what is the social media with the biggest number of users? In what position is TikTok? I'm sorry, there is a typo there. Is TikTok on the chart? Is Twitter among the 5 most used social media? When was this data collected? You see that as the title of this slide, I put nonverbal information and scanning because I need another reading comprehension strategy to deal with nonverbal information, because the nonverbal information resources that are in a text, They'll help me understand the text better. But to understand that nonverbal information, I will need something else. Okay, so if you go on to the next slide, you'll see the questions with the answers. So what is the social media with the biggest number of users? That's Facebook. What position is TikTok? 7th. Is Twitter among the 5 most used social media? No, it's in the 16th position. And when was this data collection? July 18th, 2021. If you go back, please, to the image, that is slide 29, the nonverbal information slide, you will see that everything is here in the image. So my students are able to locate that information very easily. But to do that, they will use the strategy of scanning. So I am integrating 2 strategies at the same time to work with nonverbal information. I just glance at the text and I see, oh, Facebook is the first. TikTok, well, TikTok is there in the 7th position. And Twitter, no, Twitter is not in one of the 5 positions as the question was asking. Okay. Moving on. So I'm moving to my closing remarks now. You can pass, please. So many of the reading strategies presented now are used without us being aware that we use them, especially in our mother tongue. So the problem that I talked about in the beginning of students not using reading strategies is especially because of that. As in Portuguese myself, or you in Spanish, many of the times are not aware that you do that. You do that so automatically, as Professor Kari was talking about before my talk. We tend not to pay attention to it. And it's very easy for us to do this, to use these reading strategies in our mother tongue, because we know the vocabulary. So this is something that is not a problem to us. We tend to know the structure of text. So all these things are given to us in our mother tongue, while in the language that we are learning, we should be able to pay attention to this detail. So in our mother tongue, we do them, but we should be able to be aware of them and use them intentionally with purpose in the language that we are learning. My second remark is being aware and making use of reading strategies on purpose helps readers comprehend the text with more ease. And this is what I said in my opening remarks. Students that are purposeful, that they use these reading comprehension strategies on purpose, they tend to have better results in reading tests because they know how to enter the text and to get the most of it. So these reading comprehension strategies will help you and your future students to be able to get the most out of a text. My third remark, reading in English or in any other language that we learn, I'm talking about English because the event is in English, but this can be applied to any other language that we learn, is not a simple task. It demands motivation, persistence, and consistency. Why? I remember when I was a student of English, I wasn't born bilingual, I wasn't raised bilingual. I had to learn English. And I remember in the very beginning of my learning career in English, I saw text on a magazine and I was like, oh my God, I will never be able to understand this text. It's too many words that I don't know. And I was scared. And that could have been a barrier for me and for my learning process, but I really wanted to learn English. So I used that as a motivation. And someone asked, Christy, I think, the second speaker, about how to motivate students. There is no magic. There is no easy technique that we can use, but we should help our students find this motivation in themselves. And by using texts that they can understand, by using genres that are of their interest, we as teachers will help them get more motivated to learning. Persistence, because we can help them be motivated, but they need to be persistent in their process of learning. And we as teachers. We will always be learners. We should persist even though we find the text difficult or too hard for me. We can. By using these reading strategies, we can understand the text. And consistency means that I can't do just one day and now that was too difficult. I'll go back to it in a month or in 2 months. No, I should do it with consistency. In my class as an English teacher, in your class as future English teachers, you should do reading and reading activities with reading comprehension strategies very frequently. This is how you get your students to read. This is how you get your students to understand a text. Consistency. Even if they find it hard, you will help them, not just give up on the activity. The next remark, we can only get better at something by doing it. That means read at least a little every day. And this applies to any of the skills in English, not just reading. If we want to, I'm very bad at listening. I don't know how my listening in English will never get better. It will never if I never train, if I never practice. My reading is the same with my speaking is the same. You will only get proficiency or you will only be good at a skill if you do it a little bit at least every day. So read a piece of something, use your cell phone, use your social media in English, follow pages or profiles that use English as their language. It will help you a lot. I always give this advice to my students. Surround yourself with English, in reading especially, and that's my topic today, and you will become better at it with time. And the last one that is very important, do not resort to the dictionary or translation apps, Google, for every word that you don't know. This is what I was talking about in the very beginning. Some students tend to stop at a word that they don't know and go to the dictionary or go to Google Translate or any other translating app and then go back to the text. It slows down your reading so much to the point that you don't understand the text anymore because you had to stop so many times that the general idea of the text is lost. Okay. Of course, some words will have to be looked up. Some of them we just can't skip and move on. Some okay. The problem is that when you look up every word that you don't know, you will not be motivated to continue because it becomes too hard. Okay, one strategy to avoid looking up every word in the dictionary is to use context. So if in this context, what do I think this word means? And if it makes sense, I just carry on with my reading. Okay. So guys, that's it. You can go to the last slide. I thank you very much for the invitation again. I'm open to questions now. This is my email. If you have any questions that I cannot discuss today because of time or any other reasons, you can email questions to me and I'll be very glad to reply to your emails. So thank you again very much. And I'm really sorry again for the bad connection.
Kelly. We're so grateful for your amazing information.
I still can't hear you. So if you could put the questions in the chat, I think I would be able to listen to you better.
Okay. Can you hear me right now? Can you hear me, Miss McKelly?
I can't listen to you guys. I'm really sorry.
Okay. Bueno, para las preguntas que tengan, por favor, vayan escribiéndolas en los comentarios, ya que pues la misma Kelly al parecer no nos está escuchando. Así que por favor, hagan sus preguntas en inglés y ella se las va a responder.
Yeah, I can't listen to you, so if you could write your questions here on the private chat, then I can answer.
On the private chat. Ajá. En el chat privado. Chat privado. Ajá. Comentan. Levanten la voz. Miss McKelly, are you listening to us? Can you listen to me? No.
Can you hear me?
If you're saying anything, I can't listen to you.
Bueno.
Oh, here.
Can you listen to me now?
Pero ¿dónde le mandamos?
La pregunta, le mandó una pregunta al privado.
Chat privado.
Que nosotros no estamos conectados al YouTube.
Cuando pienso en los talentos de
André, yo no puedo escribir en el chat privado.
son los que pueden construir nuestra leyenda personal. ¿Te has preguntado cómo puedo transformar mi historia de vida? Si tienes un talento para cambiar tu historia, nosotros te ayudamos a evolucionarla. Tu leyenda personal está en una educación sin límites.
Hola, soy Estefanía Cárdenas.
Y yo, Moisés Perales.
Y somos parte de la Corporación Universitaria Americana.
Te invitamos a que conozcas sobre esta gran familia que durante años ha venido trabajando en servicios de educación.
En la Americana contamos con programas de pregrado presencial, pregrado virtual, posgrados y educación continuada.
Actualmente estamos ofreciendo un subsidio solidario por toda tu carrera y además nuestras inscripciones son gratis.
Aprovecha los subsidios solidarios y comienza a construir tus sueños.
Elige una educación sin límites.
Elige
la familia americana.
Bueno, pues al parecer la misma Kelly nunca nos escuchó. Lamentablemente no va a poder responder las preguntas.
Bueno, primeramente agradecerle a ustedes su asistencia, pues el gran conocimiento que nosotros hemos adquirido por medio de este seminario internacional. Esperamos que estos seminarios puedan repetirse más frecuentemente y pues gracias a ustedes, investigadores, magísteres, doctores, a los profesores que nos ayudaron a que todo esto sea posible.
A los que están en vivo también.
A los que están en vivo,
al personal técnico.
Al personal técnico. Entonces, muchísimas gracias.
Gracias por la paciencia que nos tuvieron también.
Y espero que hayan disfrutado mucho este evento.
Sí.
Chao.
Gracias. Chao.